32F. I started planning our anniversary trip while he was planning his getaway with her. How a simple credit card statement ended my 8-year marriage using a throwaway account for obvious reasons. This happened 3 weeks ago, and I'm still having trouble breathing normally when I think about it. I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts. My husband Jake, 34M, and I have been married for 8 years, together for 11. We met in college during our senior year. I was the quiet bookworm finishing my English degree. He was the charming business major who somehow noticed me in the back of our shared economics elective. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Weekend hikes with our golden retriever Max, spontaneous road trips to the coast, lazy Sunday brunches at that little cafe on 7th Street. We didn't have children yet, but we'd been talking about starting a family next year. I thought we were happy. I can still remember our wedding day so clearly. The way he looked at me when I walked down the aisle, how he whispered forever before kissing me. I believed him. God, I really believed him. Looking back, the red flags were waving frantically, but I was too busy being the trusting wife to notice them. About 6 months ago, Jake started working later at his marketing firm. New client, bigger accounts, more responsibility, all perfectly reasonable explanations that I never questioned. The business trips increased from monthly to bi-weekly. Building the company's national presence, he'd say, kissing me goodbye as he rolled his suitcase out the door. His phone became an extension of his hand, always face down when not in use. When it would buzz, he'd take it to another room to answer. Work never stops, he'd explain with an exhausted smile that I now realize was rehearsed. Our intimacy faded gradually, so gradually I barely noticed. When I initiated, there was always a reason: stress, fatigue, early meeting the next day. I started wondering if it was me. Had I gained too much weight? Was I not exciting enough? I even bought new lingerie that sat unworn in my drawer, while I convinced myself this was just a phase. The most obvious sign came during our friend's dinner party last month. Jake disappeared for nearly 30 minutes. When I found him in the den, he quickly ended a call and said it was a work emergency. Our friend Mark gave me a strange look when Jake mentioned which client it was. Now I understand why. Mark knew the account had been transferred to another team weeks earlier. It was a Wednesday. I remember because the new episode of that crime podcast I love had just downloaded. I was listening to it while sorting through our mail. Bills, flyers, the usual. Then came the credit card statement. I almost set it aside for Jake to handle as usual, but something made me open it. I scanned the transactions casually at first. Gas station, grocery store, Amazon. Then I saw it. A charge for the Grand Lakeview Hotel downtown. $487.21. The date was from his business trip 2 weeks ago. The problem? His company always covered accommodations. Always. And the Grand Lakeview wasn't the company's usual business hotel chain. Plus, Jake had told me he was in Denver that week. The Grand Lakeview is here in Seattle. My hands started shaking. The podcast voice faded into background noise. I felt my stomach drop as if I was plummeting from a great height. I couldn't breathe. I called the hotel, my voice surprisingly steady, as I explained I needed a copy of a receipt for a stay under my husband's name for tax purposes. The cheerful receptionist confirmed Jake's stay, a 2-night reservation in their romantic getaway package. I hung up and vomited in the kitchen sink. I became a detective in my own marriage. With shaking hands, I logged into our shared cloud account that Jake probably forgot I had access to. There they were, dozens of photos he hadn't bothered to hide well. Jake and Sarah, his 28-year-old colleague who'd been to our house for dinner twice, the woman who had hugged me and brought me a houseplant as a gift. The timestamps on the photos spanned 5 months. 5 months. I found their text messages next. The cloud backup of his phone contained everything: their inside jokes, plans for their next rendezvous, complaints about their respective partners. Sarah was engaged to a man named Chris, who appeared frequently in their conversations as an obstacle to their happiness. "I wish we could just run away together," Jake had written. "Soon, baby. Just need to figure out the right timing," she'd replied. The worst part wasn't the sexual messages, though they made me physically ill. It was the emotional intimacy. He told her things about his dreams and fears that he'd stopped sharing with me years ago. I discovered a hidden email account with flight confirmations for a trip to Bali, scheduled for next month during what was supposed to be our anniversary. They had planned a 10-day vacation while I had been dropping hints about renewing our vows. After 5 hours of digging, I sat surrounded by printed evidence, my face swollen from crying, feeling like I'd been living in a simulation of a marriage. I considered dramatic reveals, showing up at his office, contacting Sarah's fiancé, waiting until he lied about his next trip. But ultimately, I chose simplicity. I laid out the evidence on our dining table: the credit card statement, the hotel confirmation, the photos, the messages, the flight itinerary. Then I texted him, "Come home, now." He must have heard something in those 3 words because he arrived within 30 minutes. When he walked in, I was sitting calmly at the table, a glass of his expensive scotch in my hand, something I never drink. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. I took a sip, letting the liquid burn my throat, and said nothing. Just gestured toward the chair across from me. When he saw what was on the table, all color drained from his face. "Emily, I can explain." "Explain what exactly?" My voice was eerily calm. "How you've been fucking your colleague for 5 months. How you were planning to take her to Bali while I was thinking about renewing our vows. Or maybe explain the romantic getaway package at the Grand Lakeview when you were supposedly in Denver." "It's not what you think," he started, the classic line of every cheater in history. I laughed. It sounded alien even to my own ears. "It's exactly what I think, Jake. I'm not asking for explanations. I'm telling you it's over." His facade cracked then. First came denial, then anger. "You went through my private messages?" Then tears, and finally the confession. "I never meant to hurt you," he said, head in his hands. "It just happened. We connected in a way that I don't know how to explain it." "In a way that we don't anymore?" I finished for him. His silence was answer enough. "She makes me feel alive," he eventually whispered. Those 5 words cut deeper than any knife. Had I made him feel dead? That night, I packed a bag and went to my sister's house. The next day, I contacted a lawyer. 3 days later, I told our friends. Their shock seemed genuine, except for Mark and his wife, who awkwardly admitted they'd suspected something, but didn't know how to tell me. Sarah's fiancé, Chris, deserved to know, so I sent him an email with some of the evidence. He called me, devastated, and we had a strange, painful conversation as 2 people whose lives had been shattered by the people we trusted most. The physical symptoms have been the most surprising part of this trauma. Hair falling out in the shower, insomnia that no sleeping pill can touch, weight loss that my sister monitors with growing concern, a constant tightness in my chest that feels like an impending heart attack. Jake has been sending daily texts alternating between apologies and accusations. He blames me for being emotionally distant, projection at its finest, for being too focused on my career, for not noticing that he was crying out for connection. Yesterday, he had the audacity to say that I drove him to this by not being spontaneous enough. The wedding ring. I haven't taken off in 8 years now sits in my sister's jewelry box. I can't bear to look at it, but I can't throw it away either. It's been 3 weeks. I'm staying with my sister while Jake packs his things from our house. I filed for divorce and started therapy twice a week. My therapist says I'm experiencing trauma responses and has recommended EMDR therapy. The hardest part isn't losing Jake. I realize now I lost him months ago. The hardest part is losing the future I thought we had, the children we planned, the growing old together, the trust I had in my own judgment. Some days I can function. I go to work, I eat something, I might even laugh at my sister's jokes. Other days, I can barely get out of bed. The humiliation is almost worse than the heartbreak. Everyone knows. Everyone is talking about it. People look at me with pity or worse, curiosity, wondering what I did wrong, what I missed, how I couldn't have known. I'm told this gets better, that one day I'll be grateful this happened because I'll find someone worthy of my trust. Right now, I can't imagine trusting anyone again. Right now, every message from a concerned friend feels like sandpaper on raw skin. To anyone reading this who suspects their partner is cheating, trust your gut. Look for the signs I ignored. Don't waste years of your life on someone who can look you in the eye and lie. And to anyone who's been through this, does the breathing ever get easier? TLDR, discovered my husband of 8 years was having a 5-month affair with his colleague when I found a hotel charge on our credit card statement. Further investigation revealed they were planning a trip to Bali during what would have been our anniversary. I've filed for divorce and I'm trying to pick up the pieces of my life. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this post to get so much attention. Thank you all for your support and advice. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, Sarah's fiance Chris and I have been in contact. We're supporting each other through this in a strictly platonic way. No, the irony of that isn't lost on me. 2. Jake and Sarah are apparently taking a break to figure things out. According to mutual friends, she's trying to salvage her engagement. Good luck with that. Chris deserves better. 3. For those asking if I'll ever forgive him, I don't know. Right now, I'm focused on forgiving myself for not seeing what was happening. 4. To the DM suggesting this is somehow my fault or that I should have fought for my marriage, please stop. You don't get to victim blame me while I'm going through the worst experience of my life. 5. Yes, we have a prenup. No, it doesn't cover infidelity specifically. Yes, I've changed all my passwords and banking information. Thank you all for making me feel less alone in this nightmare.